The Crash Course Podcast is brought to you in part by DerbyParts.com, Smashmaster, Derby Parts, and Derby Inc. magazine. Live it, breathe it, be it, Derby Inc. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby Podcast, recorded live at the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls, New York. And now your host, Chris Marquardt.
Probably should have brought those up sooner. Good afternoon, good evening, good day. This is the Crash Course Demolition Derby Podcast, episode number 9. I'm Chris Marquardt. We've got a full house tonight. Got the effervescent Brian Tompkins joining us in studio.
Good word.
Yes, it is a good word. Yes. Now, if you could tell me what it means from last week.
That was 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Anyway, can you remember?
I can.
What is it?
It means chipper.
Bubbly is the correct
Chipper.
answer. It's bubbly.
Chipper.
Also, we've got Matt Poormon and Ben Haust in studio, and we've got Aaron Bunce. Guys, thanks for joining us here. Officials Roundtable basically is the theme tonight. We're just going to kind of talk about some of the things from the officials' perspective, what they end up having to see and do and go through, and all the different scenarios that they endure through the course of the season. We're also going to be catching up with Randy Mosloski from the Napa Auto Parts Winter-Slam in Garden City, Minnesota. We're taking the crash course on the road again. We're going to be out there February 8th for an outdoor show in Minnesota in February. I'm not really sure why we agreed to this, but we did. and that'll be a cold time. Thankfully, it's down in a riverbed about 200 feet below the regular plane of the terrain. So if it's 30-mile-an-hour wind at the top, it's only about 5 down in the bottom of the gully. So that'll be good. And so the wind chill at least won't be a factor. Brian's going to go with us. At least he's saying that now. Go ahead.
Is this the show where the crash course is buying us all those embroidered crash court Carhartt bibs and jackets to wear?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just going to go ahead and mute your mic now. Pretty much everybody's going to be there in some form of coveralls. How many different layers of those coveralls remains to be seen. Last year it was in the 30s, and they said the wind wasn't so bad. And it's really cool. The trucks there are nasty, nasty.
I'm looking forward. I think that's probably the thing I'm most looking forward to is the full size trucks. Just because I've never seen a full size truck show. In Whitney Point, I guess I saw one.
Mute their phone?
That would be me.
That'd be an official. Imagine that. One full size truck show at Whitney Point was an incredible show. Hippie and some of the boys from Walton were there.
That was the year that there was a red Dodge.
Nope, there was a Coors Light Ram Charger.
Okay.
And that would be Hippie. And he was
junking everything.
Yes,
Yep.
Until he drove over the Jersey barrier.
Yeah, he drove up on the guide rail on the Jersey barrier.
But he was put on a hell of a show to that point.
He does every time he's out.
Yeah, he pulled the Josh Decker. I think we'll just call that a Decker from now on.
Yeah.
Oh, hi Josh. Sorry you're not here tonight, buddy.
Josh couldn't make it tonight. He wasn't sure there was going to be enough seats. He was right.
I'm pretty sure he had a honeydew list he was working on from 2 weeks ago. But.
Yeah.
He's probably building a Ford.
He's all inspired now.
Hanging out with Mark Benjamin.
Taking driving lessons.
Wow, man. Tough room. Jeez. We're going to have Randy on in a little bit to talk about, everything that's going on out there in Minnesota. But I just wanted to kind of go around and give everybody lowdown and a little bit of an introduction on who's who. This is Aaron Bunce, been an inspector at Hartford Fair, been an inspector at Metal Destruction, pretty much one of the most well-respected inspectors, and pretty much anybody that has any questions or concerns about the rules, generally that's one of the first phone calls that they place. So I'm glad you're able to make the trip in. We got Matt Poormon, and then we got Ben Haust, who's one.
I skipped right over you, man.
Been a long time.
Not much to say about it.
It's all right.
Long time flagger at the Seneca County Fair. Also been over at the Yates County Fairgrounds. Has been in the inspection lines a lot of different places, so has had the opportunity to learn a lot from a lot of the different people. People like Ben Haust, been a 4-time winner at the Seneca County Fairgrounds. Was invited as a guest inspector out to Bash for Cash a couple years back. He's been involved in the Total Destruction program for years. Oversaw the rewrite of their rule book this year, which has been met with some mixed reviews, which we'll get into in a little bit. And then also, was able to be the voice of reason, if you will, when we were at the Blizzard Bash, because some of the stuff out there was way over our heads when Josh and I were looking at it, and Ben was able to explain some of the stuff we were looking at. So, I mean, basically, just kind of throwing the first question out there. What's the hardest part about being an official? I mean, anybody that wants to jump in and answer that, other than the drivers. Actually, all of you have driving experience as well. Which does that help you in dealing with the drivers, or does it make it more difficult?
I think it helps because it gives you both sides.
Grab that microphone up there so we can hear you.
I think it helps because it gives you both sides of the spectrum. You know, guys will you understand a driver's point of view because it's not necessarily the same as an official's point of view at all times. But I think anybody that's an official that's officiating should have at least driven. You know, they need to know what it's like behind the wheel because it's very deceiving.
One of the hardest things is making everybody happy, I guess.
That'll never.
Yeah, but you never make everybody happy. That's the misconception a lot of people have.
I was gonna say that's not really your job. It's not to make everybody happy. It's to keep everything fair. I mean, even if it's not necessarily fair, it's at least equal.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean, what was it like going out to the bash and inspecting there compared to what you've seen here?
Oh, yeah, that actually made my head spin when I went out there. Just the stuff, different building techniques, the building styles. Of course, it's Ohio rules. It's a totally different set of rules.
Jaw dropping.
Well, I mean, it's more because we went out and ran Ohio shows before, and it's just their concept. I mean, their concept of the way they build things to bring them back into the rules when they go through the inspection lines totally different than what everybody else does. And different areas are different.
Well, yeah, I mean, we saw that hands down when you go from here to Pennsylvania and then across to Ohio and then the other 20 hours out to Kansas.
Right. That Kansas show was just kind of, I think the.
I don't remember who coined the term, but instead of the heavy build or the limited weld or identifying that way, they just simply were calling it an extreme build, and that's accurate. It was extreme.
Yeah, but I mean it too. If you compared it to different shows like an Ohio show or Hartford show or stuff, it's really not that extreme. You know what I mean? It's just different perspectives, like the front ends. The rules
from the control arms forward, I think that's pretty extreme. They can pretty much box it in with as much metal as they want to and make their own bumpers.
Right. The bumpers, which that's understandable. I mean, they had New Yorker Rome pointy bumpers out there for $475 and they were selling them. Yeah. So I mean, it's. I guess it depends on what area you go to, what degree you want to call it. But
sure.
From my perspective, it really wasn't. My definition of extreme is like pro mod extreme. That's extreme. Yeah. That out there would be like that out there would be like a full weld. You know, I mean, it's for the exception of the added plates you can put on the front from the arms forward, but that's the rest of it's kind of like an Ohio build, really.
I mean, Aaron, have you had the chance to get out of town other than New York and Pennsylvania and go and do some of the stuff that Ben has done in terms of inspect other places?
I went to Bash last year with a bunch of guys, and we had a good time, and I was pretty impressed on the builds.
Yeah.
Compared to around here, it's I mean, it's pretty jaw-dropping how them cars hold up. They keep running and running and running and running.
They can take some abuse.
Yeah.
And they never overheated out there in Ohio.
Yeah.
Never, not a one of them.
Yep.
There were some guys that just weren't even bothering with radiators in Topeka. They just weren't even bothering with them.
No.
We run 15, 20-minute features around here, and we're melting motors out there. It was, an hour?
Hour plus.
Yeah, hour and a half for the 80s and newer, and not a one of them overheated.
Mm-hmm.
I think the only one, really, there's a couple that got hot out in Topeka. One of them was a $10,000 6.0 Baldwin motor. The guy just put in his car for that show.
and he dropped it off on a pallet at Baldwin and said, "I'll see you next month."
Yeah,
another check for $10,000.
Pretty much. After I think it was Sunday, we were talking to the Hofmeister guy, and he says, "Yeah, it's going to be on the trailer when we pull out. It's going to be on Baldwin's trailer when he pulls out today, and pick it up like next month or $10,000." That's like wow.
Aaron's being a little modest. I'm going to speak up for him. Back in the day, there was a big demo organization, Dent, and they ran some big shows. They were the originator of the inside shows, I'd say. And Aaron and some other guys from Bath, I don't know if his brother ran or not, but I know Mike Rice went out, and Dougie and Danny Snyder, and Frankie Rondell, and
Steve
Manichaki went out. And all these guys went out west and ran. And they ran Steubenville. They ran this Pontiac Silverdome. So, I mean, he's been exposed to it. He's, definitely one of the guys from our area, one of the first guys, in the group that went out there. And so, I mean, he was exposed to it a lot more than we were, and I'm sure he's picked up a lot of things over the years from – because, I mean, you could be good here, and then you go somewhere out there.
Yeah,
and
I learned a lot going out there.
Yeah.
But the builds back then weren't like they are now.
No, but I mean, still, you guys, all of you guys that went out there and ran were all pretty successful in this area. Mm-hmm. But then to go out there, I mean, it was a whole nother ball game again. I mean, I think really that's still what guys run into now. I mean, you go to somewhere else and you have to raise, and it's not necessarily a bad thing or that guys around here aren't good builders. It's just that it's a different ball game.
It's the interpretation of the rules. The rules are just a little bit different, but the interpretation and the ingenuity is just so far advanced. I mean, they're just and not saying that people around here aren't smart enough to do it.
Yeah,
it's
they just haven't.
A lot of this stuff.
They've been exposed to it.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff like you seen last year at the Bash. I've seen the year before. It's kind of like you sit there and scratch your head and go, well that's kind of. It's kind of thinking. You see it, but you don't think of it. You don't think it's going to have an effect. And then after you watch and see, it's like, that did have an effect. They should try that.
It's the whys and the hows, and figuring out how to do it.
But when you show up to a show around here, after you go out there and see what they do, and then show up to a show around here, people. Yeah, don't like it. They go nuts.
Well, and some of them don't. A lot of people really don't even have a clue. Yeah. They know something's wrong with it, but they're not sure.
Yeah.
So they automatically think you're cheating, right? Because your car is
exactly.
Holding up,
but they don't understand. They just don't understand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Hey, you're the only guy I know that can build a Chevy wagon that can hit a Imperial headlight to headlight, not build the or bend the wagon.
It was from down south.
Yeah, and a tow package, right?
Yeah. Police package.
Joining us on the DerbyParts.com hotline, we've got Randy Mosloski from the Napa Auto Parts Winter-Slam. Randy, welcome to the crash course.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Here's all right?
Yes, here you are. Clear.
Good. We were just talking a little bit about some of the different build styles and some of the things that you see when you get outside of your home area. What are we walking into when we come out there and bring the crash course on the road and come to the Winter-Slam presented by Napa out there in Garden City, Minnesota, February 8th?
Well, we kind of split things up a little bit so it can kind of relate to several different groups of drivers. We've actually got, we're going to kind of start out with like the front-wheel drive 108 and under wheelbase. It's a pretty stock type build. It's a chain door situation. They get 2 spots per location to chain your doors shut. We allow them to put some decent bumpers on them so they make them last a little longer. Then we got another chain class, which would be the 80 and newer, of course. We give them a little bit of leeway to try and strengthen up the car a little bit as far as all the weak points that are normally on them, which is, old iron bumpers, any tire, really not limited on tires. We hate flats. We let them swap some ends around so we can get rid of the weak axles that are on them. Other than that, it's pretty much chain them up and go tear it up type situation. And we've got 2 weld classes that we're going to have as well. One of them, of course, will be the old iron mixed with the 80 and newers. And it's a full weld, but we kind of detuned the rules a little bit this year to where we got away from the distributor protectors, tranny braces. Basically, we're going to allow them to run them, but you're going to have to cut the firewall out. So basically, to the person that can't afford to have that type of stuff, they'll still be able to come and be very competitive in that class. And then we got the weld trucks as well, and they're on the verge of being a close to a pretty modified truck type of situation. We allow them to load the bumpers. They can build them up pretty darn well. The cage interior, we pretty much don't even care what they put inside them because it's pretty much driver safety. But frame-wise, frame's got to stay pretty well stocked. But the rest of the build, they can build them up pretty well.
We're really looking forward to seeing those trucks.
Yeah, they
That's gonna be
do
the highlight.
put on a show. Even the county fair stuff around here, the spectators just love them because they drive hard.
Ben was chuckling over there when you're talking about what you've got for the weld class for the cars. That's actually fairly similar to what they do at Penyan. If you show up with that distributor protector, they might make you clearance your firewall somewhat. But it sounds like you're negating any advantage whatsoever that you've got with that. How has that detuning been received out there in your area?
A lot of the drivers that we had previous, or especially even like last year, a bunch of them have not shown up, but I have gained on the backside and had a lot of interest actually in different states now, just from going to the lighter build. And the repercussion is, they love the fact that they don't have to spend 6 months in a shop to build a really hard car.
I mean, what about for you guys here? I mean, having been so intimate with so many different rule makers and different rule books, what's your general impression? Are the people here that we see regularly in the Northeast, New York, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, are they trending towards doing that heavier build where they spend, as Randy said, 6 months in the shop building a car, or are they trying to direct their attention more towards the quick build the way that it was back in the 90s?
Depends on who it is.
Kind of a lot of controversy with both directions, really. Even with my local guys, around here, some of them want to, being they got to spend so much money for the cars, they want to be able to build them really well.
Mm-hmm.
They can get a couple runs, but car counts are dwindling so bad because of the fact that nobody wants to put the extra time and money into it, and they're kind of regressing back to that 80s, the 80s chain class, which. The 80s chains class is already filled. I don't even have a spot left for it for a Winter-Slam.
And that's 35 cars, right?
35, yep. And we're going to cut them loose all in one shot.
Yeah.
What about? I mean, what Ben, Matt, Aaron, what have you guys come across in terms of some of the rule books that have been sent to you for review or events where you've had the chance to talk to drivers in the inspection line? What are you guys hearing from the guys in your circles in terms of the build style? I know Ben's got an interesting situation with this cradle swap deal with Total Destruction, and you've also got all sorts of other people that are chiming in your world too.
Oh yeah, I mean it's kind of a mixed deal. I mean you get the guys. We've got a mixed range of guys around here, that want to run all the goodies, want to run distributor protectors, want to run tranny protectors, and just all the goodies, and then you got the other guys that don't have the money to do it. I mean, you got to face it. I mean, not everybody can spend that much money, and run their cars. So that's where the separation of the classes comes into play. Run a weld class. Prime example is it's had a good result is like the Cuba show. Mm-hmm. They have your economy class, which is my idea of a chain and bang class. And then you have the weld class. You can run all your goodies, somewhat all your goodies, not all your goodies, but
not your alcohol engines.
No, you can't run alcohol motors, but but as for car count wise, I think Aaron will agree. I mean, he's seen it dwindle from there's shows in the past 100 cars down to 70 cars to 60 cars to 50 cars. I don't think a good show anymore is like 30 cars. If weld class, heavier build type cars, you're lucky to get 30 cars.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a small group of guys that will spend the money for that.
And they're diehards. I mean, they're going to do it until they got to get shoveled out of the car. It's just that's the way them guys like to run.
Right.
But the upcoming guys, not all upcoming guys are chain and bang guys.
Right.
There's a lot of upcoming guys that are dumping money and want to build the heavy stuff.
Well, everybody likes to lament the days of the $50 car and how they're gone, but the generation coming in never had the $50 car, and they don't know anything. I mean, they've grown up with the social media, they've grown up with We Crash, they've seen all this stuff. You can, if you have a deep enough wallet, you can build a car that can compete.
Exactly.
Simple as that. You can't buy seat time.
Like we're
but
talking,
you can,
that's
but you you can buy a car that will go out there and compete with whatever level you want to enter at.
But that's not always the case, though, because the one thing you can't buy is driver talent, and it's no different than any other motorsport. I mean, you can have the best of everything, and you go out there and sit sideways in the middle of a track for a long period of time, and it doesn't matter what you have, you're going to get jumped.
Brian Tompkins out there, you're going to hit him. Randy, do you have a lot of youth movement out there? I mean, have you got a lot of guys in that 18 to 25 bracket coming in and signing up to run your shows?
Oh yes, especially here in the last couple of years. That 80s chain and bang that I have, I detuned it to the point to where you got to have a completely stock appearing motor. You can't run a slider drive shaft. You cannot have a braced rear end. Basically give them just enough to get a decent car for them kids to go out there, even if you don't have good tires, even if you didn't change your bumpers. I've got 16, 17-year-old girls that are jumping in. I've got 14-year-old kids that are jumping in. It is helping the younger generation to give a shot to get on the track.
Randy, what's more popular in like the hometown fairs, so to speak, around your area? I mean, what kind of rules do they run for the local fairs out there?
We kind of got a mixed variety. Are you talking kind of like the classes we have here?
Okay.
The old iron, old iron weld. The guys do like to build quite a bit for that one, but we just kind of mix it up. Between the 80s chain and the old iron and the trucks, there are 3 popular classes in this territory.
Okay, that's cool.
Did you see any pictures of the trucks in the last?
There's like the bash trucks they had out there. I mean, is there any bumper height rule with the trucks or no?
Yep, we have a 30-inch maximum, and then we've got a 24 minimum.
Right.
But a few guys getting really, really low to where we're getting concerned of safety, trying to flip trucks too easily.
Nice. Jill Lancaster shot this show last year, and she submitted a bunch of photos for Derby Inc. magazine. So there's a bit of a photo spread from Winter-Slam 2013. If you kind of get an idea of what that looks like.
They got videos.
There's all sorts of stuff
on
out there
YouTube too. Yeah. I've watched some of the videos. It looks pretty impressive. Now, what's your location like to compared to like where Pine City is?
We're quite a bit further south.
Okay.
I would say we're about 80 miles south of the city.
Meaning warmer.
Yeah, it's going to be 35.
I just asked because I met a bunch of guys out a few years ago, the Lacey's, out to the bash. They brought Imperials down out for Ohio. Trig Lacey and the father and all them, and they all run Pine City. That's pretty much all Imperials from what I understand up there.
Yeah, they're quite a bit more outlawed compared to what I tolerate.
Yeah.
So one of the big issues we had, I think we had about 4 or 5 trucks that come from that similar territory, and yeah, they were just too far over for the toleration of where we were going to be. A lot of it being the frame that particular territory, they do allow them to box the frames completely in.
Right.
And that's from like A-arms forward.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And they're pretty extreme.
Right. Now how?
I mean, go ahead.
Now how are you when how are you with working with people? How when they show up to your show, if they're is there a fine line to where, or is there just a hard line to just leave it on the trailer, or do you work with them with you can cut this, you can cut that, and
with the truck class is a little bit different than the rest of them.
Right.
Like their 80s chain and the old iron class, if you got any frame mods, any extra frame seam welds, anything, I put it right in bold print this year. You have no chance to fix. You're just automatically loaded.
Right.
Now, last year when we ran through, we had just over 107 vehicles, and I think only 4 passed tech the first round.
Nice.
Kind of like Hartford.
Yeah, that's kind of like the
It
bench
happened
this
to
year.
be
though.
2 below zero that day. We've got to deal with all these guys coming back.
It was what? What?
And then even last year we had to show.
below
We had to
zero?
start the show, about 20 minutes late.
right.
We just can't have it, and we're just buckling down even tighter. And if we got to load them right off the bat, what it's going to take to get these guys to be able to know we mean business.
Yeah, I'm a firm believer in that. Usually, when it only takes 1 year, maybe 2 years, and you load people, they kind of get the point after that.
Josh couldn't make it in tonight, but he texted me and he said to let you know, don't be afraid about starting the show late when we're out there in February, because he'd be happy to either fill in on the crash course or just do a quick autograph session for all his fans out there in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Well, from his post, I thought he was going to try and drive a car, from what I hear.
That probably wouldn't surprise me if he starts nosing around for a car. Would not surprise me at all.
The key term there would be the try part. That would be the try.
You don't have concrete barriers out there.
You can't get stuck on a snowbank.
He'd find a way.
He can melt it down.
Poor Decker.
That's one thing we do too. Speaking of snowbanks, is the dirt berms we do set up like a rough berm now that is fairly firm. Well, by the time it gets to that point, it's firm.
It's
Frozen.
Concrete
Yeah.
wall.
It's a bermsicle.
We've had a couple shows that we had no snow to be able to make the berms out of, but that we just kind of had dry years. But being we got guys coming from, right now we got guys signed up from 4 different states that are traveling all the way here. It's a one heat run. It does take away from the show quite a bit, but we just make it known to where you cannot push up out of bounds. And if that should happen to happen, we actually pull you off and let you get going again, because I don't feel it's right to get all the way out here and make 10 seconds on the track and there you sit.
Yeah, that would suck.
That's a cool thing, though,
Yeah,
going that far.
I guess the Pennsylvania guys are out of that show because that's what they like doing.
just punt you right out.
Decker would have a chance then.
Yeah, he can pull it off. So, Randy, is there any chance that we're going to have like an early spring thaw and it'll be somewhere in that 35 to 38 degree range, or should we dress for cold?
Well, I'm just going to tell you just to be prepared.
Okay.
I heard at least the beer tent's heated.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
40 by 60, a 40 by 60 heated beer tent, and when we're at intermission, that thing is bursting at the seams.
So,
I'm sure.
so we can get our crash course stuff set up somewhere near that beer tent, right?
We're going to be inside it.
In the beer.
Perfect.
Inside.
Good to hear.
So all you jerks that are there just for the crash course are going to be in the warm. I'm going to be outside taping the derby, climbing all over frozen derby cars, trying to get GoPros that didn't fog up or freeze.
Hey, let us know how that goes for you, buddy.
Yeah, I know. I knew you'd be right there to help.
Buy
I'm sure
DVD.
Brian would be out there putting them on there.
Oh, absolutely.
No.
In a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's blood from a stone, Matt.
Randy, I've also heard that the Mopars are still pretty popular out there. Is that a truth?
There's quite a few of them around this territory, yeah.
Good. That's what I like to hear. There's nothing better than watching a Mopar run over a Chevy, right, Aaron?
Doesn't happen very often.
No.
Just checking.
Even rumor this year we might even have a T-Bird or two showing up, just because this year we did outlaw the suicides and we outlawed the Chevy wagon just for this show, just to make it a sedan only, to try and level the playing field with some of them older, rustier Chevys.
Nice.
That's one of the Kenny Rosno is talking about coming out there. Pretty excited about that.
Mm-hmm.
He's bringing a Mopar.
Good.
I don't know if it's a secret, but it's not now. Sorry, Ken.
I guess my question is with your build weight, the way your builds are, why would you outlaw?
Here comes Ben with
suicide?
Ben's analyzing. You can see the wheels turning.
Why would you outlaw the suicides?
Well, we didn't really outlaw the suicide just for this reason alone. Is last year you could do a lot more to the suicides,
right,
and a lot of the other cars, because you could bolt all the seams, and it was a pretty extreme build, and we just kind of got a lot of guff from them, and a lot of guys that did want to return and have to run against them. Basically, just the people griping about them, pretty much.
right.
And there's still just as tough of cars out there as any, but even now with the lighter build, would they still be dominant? It's hard to say. One of the weak points of the suicide is from A-arms forward, and we're allowing them to still beef the front ends up on these from A-arms forward, because it's kind of like what they do down at the UD. We're going to allow the 20-inch long, quarter-inch plate for your bumper shock. So, it might have made those pretty dominant at that point, being you can fix that front swoop up front there.
It makes a lot of them pretty tough. But I almost think, geez, I don't know, Chris. If I didn't get a tape measure out, but I tell you what, that some of them cars that
20 inches, depending on where you started measuring from.
Well, no, the thickness.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't think they were stuck to the 1/4-inch thickness. I think there's some of them look like you're about 1/2 inch.
As long as it's close. As long as it's close, you're fine.
What's a 1/4 inch amongst friends? I mean,
That's right.
You're
fine.
It's all good.
Don't worry about it. There's better things to worry about.
One thing though, with the temp chart there, them motors have got to be screaming. I mean, it's nice cold air, and they have got to just be running like just screaming. It's going to be a good time. I'm looking forward to it. Steve's
nervous. Steve Buckman with SB Motorsports announcing. He monitors the DerbyParts.com live chat for us during the show. He shoots in text message in some of the comments that he sees in the live chat. He just said he's a little bit concerned how Randy's going to feel about him announcing with his teeth chattering. Dress warm, Steve.
Now, Randy, us New Yorkers, we're used to cold, but I mean, if we get out there,
and some of us are more built for cold.
Wow. When you got to make fun of a husky guy.
Husky. I don't think you find that in Walmart. Husky.
Now, don't make fun of us New Yorkers if we get out there and that cold seems to be affecting us a little bit. We're hardy, but I don't know you guys from up in that area. You're really used to the cold, so.
It hasn't been near as cold as what it has been in years prior.
It's global warming.
It ain't gotten near as cold. Well, I guess I can't say that. One of the years we had it was the coldest day that we had in record for the year.
Oh, nice.
That's good to hear.
Good thing I didn't buy my plane ticket.
We've had a couple other years too, to where the track was actually unthawing, and it was really greasy by the end of the day. It was kind of weird.
Wasn't last year a little? Didn't it get greasy last year? I thought some of the pictures looked like the cars were muddied up pretty good on them.
Yep, and I imagine what a lot of it is by the time you get through 3 heats of people losing radiators and spraying that from one end of the track to the other.
Yeah. And
then we did have sunlight too that was baking down into the track, and
baking down at a balmy 22.
Greasy, we didn't know what we wanted to do because it's winter elements. Summertime everybody knows what to do, but on frozen ground you have no idea how it's going to react.
Just scrape the top off and get it back down to the frozen and keep going.
Yep, and even last year we tried something different. Just put a little dry silty dirt on it, and it backfired on us, and it made it more greasier than if we'd have just scraped it off.
Yep, I would.
But it's a learning curve, when you're not dealing with the summer elements that everybody's used to.
Now, in your weld class there, now that you're mixing old iron and new iron, then, right? I heard that right.
Yep.
How many newer Vics you think you'll have?
34.
With the detuning of the rules, I think the Vics and stuff, you can't actually cut them at the box and tip them that way. Anything that we've got in the new rules here, you got to cold bend them. I don't know how many interests there's going to be that way. You might actually see more of the old iron come out for this particular event.
So the 03 and newers, they can't do a bolt-in cradle or nothing?
Nope. They would have to. They got to run them with the stock cradles that are in them. We gave them just a little leeway if they want to be able to bolt steering components on it as far as the gearbox and tie rod ends and the center link.
Yeah.
But your A-arms and stuff, they all got to stay stock. So it's we're giving them a little bit to try and see if they want to attempt to put them on the track, but we don't want to give them the whole world and end up be right back to where we were with the Imperials.
You guys asked Randy a question. I'd like to get your take on it, and we'll kind of bridge this into the stopwatch discussion too after that. But I mean, how much room do you give somebody? Randy was talking about how they've got a bit of a hard line, and if you tamper with the frame, you're loaded. I mean, how difficult is it to find that fine line, Aaron, and how much to give somebody when you're in inspection line when you've got the rules in your hand? There's clearly something wrong with the car.
As far as I'm concerned, if they did something that's blatantly, past the rules, I think they should load it. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of promoters out there let them, like cut some welds and stuff like that, try to make it weaker than it would have been if they wouldn't have done what they did. But my personal opinion is if they did something that shouldn't have been done, that they should load the car. I mean, I don't give much leeway
Yeah.
when I'm looking at them. So
Yeah, and that's kind of the way we were up here too. You know, especially with this winter show, you know, I've got guys that have never, you know, they've never run under me before, so I want to give them just the fair shot as any of the locals at all. I got no favoritism to one driver to the next, and you know, if they want to go over, the rules we have are very explicit on what you can and what you can't do. I think my old iron is actually 3.5 pages long for rules. It tells you how you can mount your cage, you know, how many down bars. None of them can go to the frame. I mean, we get really in depth. So you really don't have as many phone calls or people trying to build into them gray areas that you normally would see.
I mean, Ben was in an interesting spot the last 2 years up at Franklin County, and Malone the first year, I think it was last year, with a whole troop of orange cars that ended up had done something, and they never got off the trailer, be it their decision or the official. Oh, 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then it was this year when there was a couple smash top cars that showed up there that weren't supposed to run, that had really sort of taken advantage of the thing. So when in a case like that, those are local guys. They've been at the show forever. How do you handle that situation when it's guys in a situation where they've been supporting the show forever and were kind of instrumental in keeping the show going?
That question for me?
Yeah, obviously.
Basically, that was.
I'm looking at you.
It's kind of that situation there is a unique situation because.
Is it though?
Yes, because it's we're an outside promoter coming in and doing the show under their rules. Okay, that was not our rules.
Okay.
And
that's a total destruction rule book. Was not used at the Franklin County Fair.
It was their rules were used for that, which they came up with in
both instances.
Both instances. Now this year, it's supposed to be their rules committee's been abolished, and this year we're supposed to bring a set of rules in there.
Mm-hmm. Now, does total destruction just blanketly apply the rules that they have written? So when you go to Morris, you go to Canandaigua, you go to Franklin County,
well,
it's the same set
generally
of rules.
That's that. The only difference is at Franklin County Fair. That's just a unique situation up there.
Well, they're going through some transition period, it sounds like, especially
big
if they got
transition. They have each night. It's a pre-registered show. Each night, it's a 2-night show. Each night they have at least 100 cars registered.
Yeah, it's a nightmare to score it, by the way.
Yeah, and the track is amazingly huge. It's like 380 some feet long, and they use the whole track.
Every bit of it.
And
when
I say they use it, they use it.
Tom Pickering had Illumina, and he hit a old Cutlass or something along those lines in the back end so hard that it twisted the rear end sideways. He rolled it over and put the both doors on the tunnel.
I mean, these guys.
He hit it. It was
these guys. There's a couple separate.
And he backed away, by the way.
There's a couple separate groups. I mean, there's a few groups. I mean, the two main ones. You got the power team up there, and then you got the Dustins. They're in orange cars.
There's the good old boys. There's the Stockholm boys. Can't forget them, the red cars.
Yeah.
And then there's the power team.
But you got basically Mopar versus GM up there.
Nice.
So
go Mopar. Sorry.
Power team won last year.
Right. Yeah.
They were the only cars on the track the first night, by the way.
Yeah.
Everybody else boycotted it.
But no, that's a unique situation up there. Any of our other shows, it's total destruction rules.
But even still, you've got guys that have been supporting those shows for a long time. If they come in and they've got something, is it harder to park those guys?
No.
I mean, no. It's just it's
anybody can ask me that anybody. I mean, Aaron can contest to it. Brian can. Anybody can contest to it. I don't care who you are. It is what it is. I mean, in my case, like Aaron said, if somebody blatantly cheats, I mean, if they got stuff plated or whatever, put on a trailer. I mean, I've loaded probably a half dozen guys.
I mean, Aaron alluded to this. I mean, how difficult is it a situation for you when you've got a guy that you've got a relationship with as a builder, who's obviously done something wrong, and then the promoter comes in and says, "Well, tell him what he can do to fix it."
I guess it depends on what they did.
Yeah,
right.
Let's say it's Brett Relier.
Well, I've had Brett. I've sent Brett packing before.
Right,
so,
and
there's no friends when you're an inspector.
No,
nope. So.
and that's the thing. I mean, I've been put in sticky situations like that too. Well, what can you do? Well, I'm not going to do anything. He's going to put it on a trailer.
You're going to destroy the car trying to fix it.
Right. So. And there's one instance that the guy traveled from a long way. He wanted me to work with him to bring it within the rules, and I literally made him cut his frame almost like in half. I mean, there was an inch on each side of the frame that was still holding it together.
Right.
And he was happier than heck to just get to run the car.
Right.
You know, in my eyes, was it right? No. I would have preferred to have him on the trailer myself, you know, because that would have sent the message.
Matt gets more into the live action part of it when the cars are actually on the track, and the most difficult part of Matt's job is the stopwatch. You got a 60-second. You got a 60-second shot clock in most of it. What's the time out there, Randy? I mean, how much time do you got to make a hit once you're disabled? You got 60 seconds.
We go on a 30-second aggressive hit rule. You've got 30 seconds, for your aggressive type hit, and you got a minute on restarts.
And how many seconds are in that minute?
60.
60.
Good answer.
Yeah.
I knew this was going to go bad.
And this is. I'm trying to give you a chance to speak your part of it, because a lot of the drivers they don't have a kitchen timer on their dash to say that it was 60 seconds. I mean,
some of them don't look past anything either. Brian,
Absolutely not.
Brett Relier.
You know, I mean, and the thing is Brett's a different situation unto himself. From an official.
Yeah.
From an official's point of view, if they're just standing there with a flag without a 60-second stopwatch in their hand, 10 seconds can feel like an eternity, and an eternity can feel like 10 seconds. So how difficult is it to get those cars to listen to you, basically, when you're out there with that clock in your hand? Ben's shaking his head no.
It's impossible.
Matt's turning red.
He is one of the worst ones. It's impossible to get any of them to pay attention to you.
Go ahead, Matt.
We had this talk before it started that 2 years ago, Brian.
It was 3, because he hasn't driven anywhere in 2.
He stared straight forward, thanks to my very good friend Brett Relier and giving him advice, and stared straight forward and wouldn't listen to me the whole time. The stopwatch, it feels like an eternity to me too, to time somebody. And yeah, everybody knows buddies like Ben, Brian. I've officiated both of them. It's hard to
Brett.
turn around and say, hey, you're done. But in other instances, it's like, all right, I've had enough. And when the time's time. But I got a lot of flack this year for Waterloo with Jake and Donnie. But that's
Jake Doyle getting the win, Donnie Hartzell second.
Yeah, that's how I've done it for, hell, this year was my 12th year flagging. And that's how I've done it the whole time. So am I wrong at not changing, or am I wrong for being the way I am? I don't know. I talked to Ben about this.
Go on.
And that's the thing.
Because you wear a stopwatch at all the total destruction shows,
Exactly.
whether that's the point of you wearing one or not, just keeping everybody else honest or what, but you've got one with you.
No, there's times, the worst, and Aaron will agree with me, the worst finish you could possibly have is like match situation this year. I mean, when you get down to it and two guys, either they're hung up or they're just barely moving or they're shoving back and forth, that's the crappiest finish you can get. I mean, because, no matter what way you call it, it's not, everybody's going to have different perspectives on it.
Sure.
You just have to be confident in the call that you make, stick by your call, and that's that. Because you're not going to make everybody happy.
No.
Never.
And you're never going to make everybody happy. And if you start thinking, well, okay, this guy wasn't happy with this call, so maybe next time, then you shouldn't even have a stopwatch or a flag.
Right.
It's I don't know, I'd probably get in trouble, but you might as well put asshole on the back of your shirt, pretty much. Because that's pretty much, everybody's perspective, a driver's perspective. That's where it goes back to. I think everybody flagging and officiating should have have seat time, period.
Absolutely.
Because, like Chris said, and like you said, time's way different inside the car than it is standing there with a flag. 60 seconds go by like that,
Yep.
But outside that car, 60 seconds is 60 seconds. Everybody's sitting there waiting. Oh, geez, you're going to get, 60 seconds turns into 3 minutes to everybody in the stands.
Yeah.
You gave them 3 minutes.
You got people screaming. I had a water bottle thrown in the back of my head one year because it was 30 seconds.
I
I
guess
thought it was 2 minutes.
It seems like, Randy, it seems like everybody out there knows pretty much everybody. I mean, have you ever encountered that same situation or been in an instance along those lines at Winter-Slam presented by Napa?
Oh, we've had a few situations, yeah. A lot of even like last year, it come down to the end, the final 5-6, and they just weren't putting on much of a show. It was really killing out fast, and we just started putting them on stopwatches, and granted it was greasy, but we actually got down to the point to where, all right, you didn't make a hit in your minute. We actually disqualified him, and he was in the money. You got to pretty much set that statement and just go by it.
I agree. I think all a driver should hope for is that the officials are consistent. I mean, I've been to shows where, the hometown guys. There's one promoter who's all over the Northeast who every fair he does in every town, he's got his hometown favorites. And those guys, they get extra time on the track.
State fair what?
Gee,
they
initials maybe J&M.
It's and that, I mean, that, you can't have a good show that way. I mean, I would rather have somebody, if I do something, Ben will attest to it. The last time I ran Waterloo, I brought a tilted Ford. Can't do it, but I did it. So Ben found it and said, hey, you can't do that. And I said, you're right. So I put it on the trailer. I said, no problem. And then Jesse Howell talked me into untilting it. We untilted it, and I ran it in the feature. But
untilted. Okay.
But
we'll pretend. We'll pretend.
Untilted.
But hey, we can go to my parents right now and look if you want. But and same thing with flaggers. I mean, I think all drivers want is just consistency. And I mean that's like when Aaron and these guys were inspecting at Cuba when they were down there. I think that's when it was the best because I mean it didn't matter. I watched Mark Benjamin send Brett Relier back to his trailer to fix stuff, and they've been friends forever and ran together forever. I've seen Aaron send guys, I've seen Ben send guys. If it's wrong, then if it's something small and can be fixed, then fix it, and if not, put it on the trailer. That's and the same thing with flagging. I mean, I would as a driver, you always argue with the time a little bit just because, but. That's just part of the game. But I mean, there's been nights where
because that's the chess match between drivers and officials.
Absolutely, but I mean, there's been nights at Waterloo when my car would stall, and I'd ask whoever was I don't know if I've ever done it with Matt, but I know I did it with Matt's dad, and I did it with Ralph Walburn. I just tell me when I got 10 seconds, and I wouldn't even try to turn my car over, so I'd let it sit for 40 or 50 seconds and pray in that little amount of time that it'd cool off, or I'd get lucky and it'd start up, and a couple times it has, But I mean, there's definitely times when you're not going to pay attention to officials, and and Aaron and Ben are going to agree because they drive, and it's no different. They kind of know what to expect, and
at Waterloo and Penn, I normally, as soon as the clock starts, when it gets to 30 seconds, I usually, whoever I'm watching, I let them know. I start giving them, the finger count or whatever, or letting them know.
He's over there playing charades.
Yeah, it's
I think
if you get them to look at you. Anyway.
Yeah, that's right. You got it, Randy.
to just touch on Randy's comment about getting down to that, getting down to the end, and the guys are pretty much, playing bumper cars, and not turning it up. Not to give Sam another prop. We seen it out there. He got down to the top two cars. I think it was the 80s class, right,
yeah,
Chris?
It was that
He went
80s,
out there. He says, I'm going to tell you guys right now, turn it up, or I have no problems in stopping the show and you two split the money.
Chain and go. It was a chain and go.
And let me tell you what, he left the track and they jumped it. they didn't want to split it with one another.
Nothing less.
There's been quite a few shows I've gone to where even not even Waterloo or Penn Yan, where they've stopped the show and said, listen, either we stop it or you guys start running, and then they turn it up, and it's one hell of a show.
Yeah, we had to do that at Hartford last year because the feature started out so slow.
Yep.
And the crowd was starting to get
and then as
irritated.
Soon as that,
and after we stopped and gave them all warnings that we're going to start shutting them off, they turned it up.
And that's the thing where we know as drivers too. I'd be the first culprit, culprit too. I mean, I should say play bumper cars to the extreme, but I mean, start out a little slow.
Yeah.
But
when there's that much money on the line,
Yeah,
I mean, everybody's going to take it easy in the beginning.
everybody's gonna feel everybody out,
Yep.
see what they're gonna do, what partners are what partners, and go from there. And it's expected.
We're down to about our last 10 minutes or so. Randy was going to do a 10 or 15 minute spot. He actually stayed after work, and we're on his work line, and here we are. We've used up just about the whole hour. I appreciate you hanging with us on the derbyparts.com hotline. If you would, Randy, tell us a little bit about who you've got on the track helping you out, what their experience is, and then also, but we haven't even gotten into where can you sit. Looking at the pictures, it looks like it's kind of a standing room only crowd, or there's only standing room anyway.
Oh, absolutely not. The stands, you probably can't see the stands because they're taping it from them, but they've actually we got seating for 1,300 over there.
Wow.
A pretty large seating facility there.
And it's standing room only, right?
Bleachers that are in the pit side, and then like last year we had seating for 1,300, and we had like 4,000 people there standing there in snowmobile suits. So. Tells you that a lot of guys are standing around in the corners or towards the pit side, and it does get quite packed. But a lot of the times with the cold like that, people generally like to walk around a little bit as well.
I don't even think there was that many people at the bash, was there? This year when we were out there?
What's that?
How many people are you talking?
Didn't you say that there
4,000?
You
was?
said $4,000.
Yeah.
4,000.
There's well over $4,000
Yeah, I'm
out
sure.
there.
Yeah, there was a lot of.
Yeah.
It didn't seem like it.
It's spread out more.
How about the staff? How about the staff
They
that's
get, they get spread out, and it doesn't really look like it at times.
How about your staff on track day of the show on February 8th when we see you at Winter-Slam presented by Napa Auto Parts?
I got really nice staff. I've actually got some guys that are out of state that come up and help with the tech and the flagging and whatnot. And that's one thing too is being we're trying to run through. We got a max capacity of 130 vehicles between the four classes, and we got to get them through all them cars through tech in 4 hours.
Wow, man.
It does make it rough.
I'm into
So
that.
what we've done is we've escalated up. I've got over 25 tech guys, and they're split off. And per class, there is 4 separate tech lines. They're all broken down, and we kind of run it through a process.
Nice.
Each guy's got a certain task around each car, and everybody's separated. The tech guys that I have, them 5 guys, that's all they're going to tech that day is 80s chain, or them 5 are going to only tech trucks. So it keeps a consistency to where you don't have one guy missed here, one guy missed there.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
The same 5 guys, they're going to look at them all day long and push them right through.
Ben's raising his hand. He wants to come and inspect it for everybody.
Guest inspector.
He said he's got a new set of coveralls he wants to bring in.
Oh, they're going to get dirty.
That's all right.
Man, that's a good idea, having the dedicated lines. They did something similar to that at Hartford this year with the weld cars, the limited weld cars going over the trailer, and then everybody else going through a separate line, and that.
They kind of did that at Cuba a couple times. They've tried to split them up.
We
to
tried, but I remember we used to get so backed up that we used to just start.
that's kind of a small area to work out of.
Yeah.
I mean, with that many cars, it's tough.
Yeah, and that's one thing I've told all these guys on the tech line. No matter what, when the first guy comes through to when the last guy comes through, that car gets tech the same. I don't care if I got to start 10 minutes late. Nobody's going to have the advantage by trying to rush me, 20 minutes before we're ready to close pit tech line. They're still going to get the same tech. What's going to happen is whatever they got to change, they won't get to run because they won't have the time to fix their car properly to make tech.
Final question coming in from the derbyparts.com live chat. Is there any rule or stipulation on pinning and teaming, the hit and hold?
For Winter-Slam?
Yeah.
Yes, most definitely. It is absolutely zero tolerance. You cannot push up on the berms, and if, like I said earlier, if it happens to happen, which it's a big track where you're coming across, if it's greasy and hit them. But any sort of teaming, it's just zero tolerated. We stop it right away, and we'll give them one warning. And if they don't abide by that, they're done.
How tough is that to enforce? I mean, at what point does it cross from just a hit and guy trying to get it in reverse and a hold?
And I'm going to quote somebody, all right?
All right,
I'm
go
going to
on.
quote somebody from about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. We went to a show, and in the driver's meeting, he says, if you're worried about teaming, you didn't bring enough buddies. But basically, in our shows, I mean, it's kind of, you try to police it, but you know, it's like everybody knows everybody, and it's just to the point where, you know, if it's obvious that this guy's more or less just holding you there, and the other guy backs all the way across the track, then that's, you know, they get a warning. But
around here, it's easy for us to point out though, because we know everybody. Like, who's going to run with who?
You know,
there might be a big surprise.
That's
not necessarily.
That's not nearly as easy to judge.
No.
I always tell the guys that if you're worried about it, stay on opposite sides of the track.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Not bad advice.
Yeah.
Randy, throw out there one more time where everybody can find information. I know you got a dedicated page on Facebook.
Oh, yes. There's Winter-Slam. You can request to be a member. I think there's about 700 members here already, and rapidly growing here now since we hooked up with you. It's been surreal. Any promoter that's not working with you guys don't even have a clue what they're missing out on.
Josh Decker calls us the grand facilitators. We just keep bringing people together.
Yeah.
Matchmaking.
Other than that, you know, there's on We Crash, of course, Midwest upcoming events. You know, we've got a thread started there, and then there's also a Minnesota Derby forum. You know, we've got it posted up there as well.
I couldn't find the We Crash page because I don't frequently go to the Midwest pages. I never even registered.
And this is not a superly high paying event either. So it's not really one of your high statute shows.
You got $1,500 to win for.
We've got over 13,000 that we're paying out.
Right.
But we've got it spread out so well.
Yeah,
you know, even like the old iron and the 80s chain, we pay trophies 5 spots and we pay money back to 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So, and then the hardest hitters, the most aggressive drivers in each class, we got one hardest hitter in each class that'll get $300 cash, and then there's a Terry Evans out of Iowa actually custom makes all the trophies out of just engine parts, camshafts, pulleys, whatever.
Yeah.
And then the aggressive driver gets that $300 plus that custom trophy that he made.
That's cool.
And we do have some sponsors too. Like last year, we had a few sponsors that come in a little bit late in the game, and we just the runner-up hardest hitters. You know, they got about $100 certificate towards a certain vendor.
Wow.
And you got longest tow money and second longest tow money out there as well. It's,
Yep. Yeah, we throw $100 out there for anybody that travels the furthest, and $50 for the runner-up, which, you know, is kind of a good thing because one year, you know, we had a guy that was like 600 miles, and there was a guy that was 622. You know,
You drove around the block, Tony.
Yeah. Well, Randy, you know, we sure appreciate you coming on and hanging out with us here on the DirtyParts.com hotline on the crash course. And I know we're going to be catching up with you again here before we get going. February 8th, Winter-Slam. Get on Facebook. That's Winter-Slam. Get on there, find them, go like them on Facebook. Appreciate you hanging out and staying after work for an extra hour. And
Overtime.
Just make sure you didn't punch out before you hang up. And we'll be catching up with you here soon.
awesome.
Look for the ad. It's the ad's on its way.
All right.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Chris.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Real soon. Real soon, like February 8th. We're going to be out there.
Carhartts and Long Johns.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. You know, Steve's going out there. He's gonna announce. Sounds like Ben's gonna start begging permission to get the okay to go out there. and yeah, we're looking forward to it. For Aaron Bunce, Matt Poormon, Ben Haust, Brian Tompkins, I'm Chris Morcourt. That's gonna do it for this edition of the Crash Course Demolition Derby podcast. We're gonna be back here again next Monday. And that's going to be the Christmas episode. Scott Cook's going to be here, and we're going to be talking with Wade Sicking from Derby Parts and Scott Wallace from Smash Masters. We appreciate it, and we'll be seeing you back here again next week.